Hey everybody, this is Dan. Welcome back to the Podcast Digest. Thanks again for taking the time to listen. This is episode 44, one very special episode, and I'll tell you why. My guests this week are Neil and Elise from Dark Angels and Pretty Freaks. Many of you listening to this right now have heard of those two. If you haven't, you are in for a treat. A couple based out of Napa Valley, California, has one of the most entertaining shows that I've ever talked about. They have been longtime friends of the Podcast Digest, big supporters as I am of theirs. And in addition to that, as you guys will hear as soon as the show starts up, I had a very special guest, first time ever, to join me on the Podcast Digest along with Neil and Elise. I don't want to spoil the surprise. You'll hear it in just a minute. Enjoy, folks. All right, folks, and once again, welcome back to another episode of the Podcast Digest. As I mentioned up front, my guests this week are none other than Neil and Elise from Dark Angels and Pretty Freaks. Many of you have probably heard of them already, but for the few of you who haven't, I guarantee you're going to want to subscribe by the time this conversation is over. But before we begin, let's bring them in. Neil and Elise, thank you for joining me on the Podcast Digest.
Hi, thank you.
Hello, thank you so much for having us. We're excited.
Well, I'm happy that you guys, that we finally have got this done, right? We've been talking about it for a very long time. And we've finally been able to get you guys on, and I can tell all of you about the great work that you are doing. For those of you who don't know, Neil and Elise are a couple, and this is a podcast like no other when I first found it last fall. And in honor of that, Neil and Elise, before we get into the show itself, I've got announcements for you that I haven't told you yet.
All right.
Oh, wow.
Nice. This is fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So first, and in honor of Dark Angels and Pretty Freaks, as I've mentioned before in previous shows, I'm down here in my basement recording. I brought my dogs down here in the room with me. So that's
awesome.
one. You guys, when you guys go into the back catalog of Dark Angels and Pretty Freaks, you know that, they're big dog people and they often have their dogs online with them.
Mm-hmm.
But
Whether we want to or not.
Exactly. But more importantly, for the first time ever, I have got my wife here with us, guys.
Oh,
No way!
yes.
And I'm turning her volume up now. Neil and Elise, meet Sheila.
Hi,
Hi,
guys.
Sheila.
Hi.
How are you?
Oh, we're great. How are you?
How exciting!
Oh my God. Wait, you should. We just totally started. I mean, we were already excited to be on, and now the two of us are like totally grinning and staring at each other like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever.
I was sort of laughing earlier because I hit my shin on the table too earlier.
Nice.
Right.
And I was like, oh, great. But yeah, this is going to be fun. I'm a little nervous, so,
And
Oh, no reason to be at all.
I was going to say, I'm a little nervous too.
I know, right?
And I wanted her to join us today, guys, because as I mentioned, when I first found you guys, it was the first time I had ever heard of a couple on a podcast. And as we've been working towards having this be the case, you guys joining me, I started working on my wife to convince her to join us in honor of one of my favorite couples podcasts. So
That
here we
is
are.
so cool. I got to say, you've absolutely made my weekend. This is awesome.
Oh, wow.
This is so cool.
So I have to ask, has Sheila listened to any of our episodes? Only because I feel like we need to warn her how goofy we really are.
Yeah.
I have listened to a couple. I haven't listened to many podcasts. I've only listened to maybe one of Dan's. I mean, I want to be honest about it. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, and
he's trying to get me to listen to more. It's just, one of those things.
Yeah.
Eventually, I think I will.
well, before we get too far in down the road here, I do want everyone to know more about you guys. So before we talk about your show, Neil and Elise, I'd like folks to get to know you guys a little bit more. Tell them a little bit about yourselves, kind of where you guys are located, what you do, all that fun stuff.
Sure. We're located in Napa Valley, California. And I spend a lot of my time being as goofy as you probably heard on the podcast. I very much into sports and recreation and play guitar and love dogs. We don't have any kids. No plans on having kids. We're a little selfish with our time and money, so we decided we're just going to spoil ourselves and our dogs. Besides that, yeah, for me personally, I just kind of a homebody, actually. Aside from the crazy sports stuff I do, I like to spend most of my time I spend with Annalise. It's a great time when you hear us talk, either on the podcast or on other podcasts, or if you were just to call us up. What you hear is pretty much how we are all the time when we're not discussing money or bills or, I don't know. Hygiene. I don't know. Whatever we talk about. So that's
why.
I don't
why?
know. That's me. How about you, dear?
I was getting ready for that to go up because you sound like really professional at first, and then it just starts going downhill.
No. Yeah, I had to rein myself in. So hygiene was how I reined myself in.
Oh, God. Okay, I'll give this a try.
Go.
I am the other half, Annalise.
She just raised her hand.
I know. I don't know why. You can't see me.
Used to being on video.
She just raised her hand.
I'm Annalise. So yeah, we live in Napa, and we actually just got married less than a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And when Neil asked me about doing this podcast, I thought he was crazy.
Yeah.
And in fact, our dog is right here next to us, so we do podcast with our dog. And
tell them where you work, because that's what everybody likes.
I may or may not work for Skywalker Sound, the post-production facility for Lucasfilm.
Yeah.
As a wire tech.
Yeah.
I have heard this.
That's true. We've talked about this. And it's all very exciting. But of course, I can't actually talk about work very much. So I'm not sure how exciting that really is for everybody.
I still think it's exciting. So.
When she's rubbing shoulders with all the celebrities, right?
That's right.
Oh, yeah. Lots of shoulder rubbing, for sure. I'm really short, so I have to jump up to rub shoulders. But
so what if you're short? What are you exactly? You're rubbing navels?
Easy.
Yeah.
Easy.
All right. All right. Just saying.
Hold it together.
It's going to be tough. I'm nervous, so I'm going to lose it even faster. So that's us.
And speaking of Annalise and your work, just to get this important question out of the way, I heard once, did you ever work at a comic book store?
Very good, Dan. Very, very good.
I had to get that one out of the way.
What's funny is, and maybe we'll get into this later, but we're going to Portland for a comic book convention in September, and we are going to visit the comic book store that I worked at. So hopefully we'll do some, I don't know if we'll actually podcast from there. That could be an option, but I don't want to put any pressure on those guys, but we'll for sure visit and say hi and take some pictures and stuff like that. So
I know a lot of people are going to be looking forward to it, and we will be talking about Rose City here in just a little bit, because that involves probably, I don't know, what are we up to, 75% of the independent podcast community at this point?
It's somewhere between 12 and I think 16 people something like that.
Yeah.
And, when everybody's super gung-ho right now, and I think everybody's going, but, when the time comes, we'll see how many show
actually
up.
Make it.
So let's go back even further before we get into the podcasting stuff. How did you two meet?
You tell the story.
Oh, no.
Now, okay, so we have a large group of friends that works out at Skywalker that's also involved in music, and I played music for a long time in different bands and grew up in the area where Skywalker Ranch is located. So Annalise has worked there for a long time. So we've kind of known of each other and have been around each other for 15 years?
Longer,
14?
I was 17.
17 years. But we any time that we were hanging out, we weren't hanging out together. We were with our other friends, and our circles kind of intersect. And Annalise likes to tell the story. The first time we met was at one of my shows, because the bass player in that band also worked out at Skywalker and was friends with Annalise. And at the time I was with somebody else, and Annalise was with somebody else, and we met. And I'm like, okay, hi, nice to meet you, and kind of went on my way. So the second time we met, we were both single, and I was like, hey, it's very nice to meet you. And she was like, oh, no, we've met before. And I was like, I don't remember that. And she's like, oh, yeah, no, we met. And so she likes to give me a hard time about that I don't remember the first time we met.
I think the other wives out there can feel that, we've met.
We met. I'm like, oh, sorry. So that's how we met, through friends.
Neil likes to use that one. It's to point out the good points, though, because the good point is that since he was with someone else, he doesn't remember meeting me. And what really sucks is I have to give that to him.
Yeah, totally.
Right? You're like, oh.
Yeah.
Well, I know you guys have talked about this before on your show, but for anyone who hasn't heard it yet, how does I guess originally you guys were dating when you guys started the podcast, right? Engaged. Right?
Yeah,
it was pre-wedding?
Yeah.
I think
it was
we were
pre-wedding.
Engaged
when
we started the podcast.
We just got engaged.
I think so.
Right. So you guys are engaged. The wedding's upcoming.
Mm-hmm.
Explain to me how in the world the idea of let's start a podcast came about.
Well, so I had been listening to Kevin. Well, my introduction to podcasts was NPR stuff like This American Life. I didn't know there were indie podcasts. I didn't know that there was a whole, that you could find podcasts about anything. I just was listening to NPR and This American Life. And they're like, oh, if you just want to listen to the podcast. And I'm like, that's so weird. I keep seeing this thing on my iPhone that says podcast. I have no clue what that is. So I started listening to bigger podcasts. Then in the what's trending or what's happening, I saw Kevin Smith had a podcast, and being a fan of his movies, I'm like, oh, I wonder what he talks about. And he, oftentimes says, hey, anyone can do this. It's really easy. At the time, I was quitting my band, but still looking for something fun to do. And I wanted to do something kind of creative and kind of in, that recording feel. But I also wanted to do something with Elise. And I thought, oh, this would be really cool because we can tell stories and put it out there as a podcast. But the original thought was for family and friends. So my sister's kids, when she doesn't have kids now, but when she does, can go back and listen to, her aunt and uncle and my mom. I want to have my mom on, and my sister's been on, and our friends, and they can go back years, I should say, and be like, oh my God, that was, Uncle Neil when he was, in his 40s, and now he's, they're chasing him with dirt, and it's kind of cool to hear that he had his somewhat of mental faculties back there. So it really just started to chronicle our lives for family, for the kids in the family. And that was it. It was never to be like, I never thought anybody else would really listen. I thought we might get a couple people that would be like, oh, listen to these two, jackholes talk about whatever they talk about. But I really didn't think people would be interested or that they'd find us funny. Because like I said, it's just us having a conversation. So sometimes we talk about funny stuff. Sometimes we're talking about the dog eating cat poop. It's just what we talk about. So,
and Annalise, how'd you react to this idea?
I think my exact response is, what? And then my second response was, what would we talk about?
Yeah. Followed by, I don't know if I want to do that.
like, and people would hear it and hear us talk to each other. It's kind of weird. But I agreed, and we gave it a go. Like, it didn't take him very long. I think it was literally like a 2-minute conversation. I was like, oh, well, okay. And for the most part, since he was already a musician, we had the stuff to make it happen. We could do it with what we had. And I think almost like not a week later, even, right?
It was a little time because we talked about it, and I didn't know, the whole iTunes thing or all that. So I kind of went and did a little research to see, like, I didn't know who hosts podcasts. So I first had to find out, so I was doing the, what do people feel is the best hosting? And that's when I started seeing a little bit of the independent podcast stuff. So I would say it was, I think, about 3 weeks to get everything set. Yeah,
it didn't feel that long.
No, but again, and it was funny because Annalise, when we were talking about it, I was like, the only people that are going to hear this is family. So who cares? And she's like, oh yeah, I guess we'll just chat. That's fine.
I didn't think that strangers would listen to us.
And it's funny because my big thing with Annalise is I said I don't want to really have a podcast about something. I don't want to talk about current events. I don't want to talk about sports. I don't want to talk about music. I just want to talk about what's going on with us, and just so when people listen back, because I thought it would be family, it wouldn't be like someone 25 years from now is not going to care Avengers of Age of Ultron, because they're going to be like, oh my God, that old time movie.
Well, you guys didn't see it anyway, so.
Right.
Damn it, Dan.
I told you I listened to today's episode today.
God,
but Annalise, I heard you had, I've heard you reference this mid-minor fear of a microphone at first.
Yes, and it's still a little bit dicey for me. Like, even now, like, I think I actually started moving back, and Neil's already once during this short amount of time we've been podcasting right now to get closer to the mic because I still kind of back away from it. And yeah, and so in the past, I've been asked to do certain things and like do voiceovers or things like that, and
wow.
I will just freeze.
This podcast is going to be awesome.
Stop it. So, and I freeze, and I literally just stand and like stare at the mic, and people are like, okay, go. And I'm like, I don't think I can.
Yeah. When we started, she would whisper into the mic like she was going to scare it away. She'd start leaning to either the right or the left so it wouldn't be in front of her face. But now I don't think you're before it was actually it seemed like a little bit of the phobia of actually recording.
Yeah.
Now it's like you just don't like the thing that close to your face.
Well, there's also that.
Oh my God. Euphemism central today.
I know,
So,
right?
Annalise, this is one of the reasons I asked Sheila to join us today, because I have asked her on half a dozen occasions at least if she would be willing to do a show with me, at least on an episode here or there. And I know that she has a sort of similar fear of the microphone. So what advice can you give her to kind of function with it?
Right. Is she currently leaning away from the microphone?
Yeah, a little bit. He's already
Yeah,
told me.
Is she
Get
currently
closer?
trying to leave the room?
He tells me get closer to the mic.
Right, exactly. So obviously it's a little weird being so close to it, and it's a little weird knowing that it's being recorded, which I think is the biggest thing. I mean, because obviously you're in there and you're with your husband, and you're talking and you're listening to us talk, and it seems, as weird as this is, it's kind of normal. We're talking to each other, but I think it's the recording aspect that freaks me out the most. I don't know if that's for everybody.
Well, I told him I just didn't want to sound stupid.
And what's funny is I completely agree with that. And I have this very technical job, and a lot of times I feel like I come across really silly, and I have to try to fight the urge to like go on Twitter or go on our website or something and be like, I'm really smart, I swear. Which makes that sound even worse, because why do you have to defend it? So I don't think you need to be afraid of that, but it's definitely something I have tried to get over. And the only advice I can say, for me, I think just doing it and continuing to do it has made it easier.
Yeah. And my 2 cents would just talk to Dan. Don't worry about the recording equipment.
Right.
I know for me, I'm a little used to a microphone because, I played in a band and stuff, but I'd say just keep looking at Dan and just have a conversation with him, even if it's topical, even if you guys are going to say, okay, we're going to talk about this, just same way you would, at the dinner table or at the bar or wherever you guys would be hanging out.
That's good. I agree with that. And I think I heard your dog in the background.
Yeah, she's running up and down the stairs.
They're done with the Kong and the rawhide covered in peanut butter now. So now they're kind of running all around saying, what do I eat now?
That's awesome, because right next to us, we have a Kong covered in peanut butter. Well, I should say the peanut butter's in the Kong.
Right.
But fortunately, Zero, I took him for a walk right before we got, so he's passed out.
the pre-podcast dog time spending. You know how to wear them out at first. Well, here's a question for you guys, and this is something that I'm going to bet a lot of people listening to Dark Angels and Pretty Freaks, or if they start to listen, may wonder this. This might be a little more directed at Annalise, to be honest, but
Okay.
So as you guys are having these conversations, and I don't know, maybe 80%, 75% of your episodes so far are just the two of you. And you guys have covered, like you were talking about, Neil, pretty much everything and anything, kind of what's going on right now. But sometimes it seems like you guys might wander down in a particular topic matter where Annalise is sort of shushing you. And have you guys ever finished an episode or a few days later and be like, I can't believe you did this, or, covering anything that, might not sit well with the other? And if so, what was that story, and how do you guys deal with that?
Yes. And also,
We have?
no,
Here we go. We are now, right? There is one now.
I'm like, wait, what?
we're going to talk about it right now.
Yeah.
There hasn't really been anything that I felt we had to discuss after. But like, there's definitely some times where like I can, he's talking and he's going and I'm like, oh no, here he goes. And I'm sure if you listen to the podcast, there's many times where I'm like, nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
It's because it is how we are with each other. I know when she says nope, that means, because it happens when we're not recording too, because I am very open and will talk about anything. I joke around a lot, and I joke about my mom and my sister, but these are also jokes I make in front of them, not in a disrespectful way. We're just a very open family. And so I have no problem. Like, I'll talk about masturbating in front of my family. No, wait, no, that sounds weird. Not that I masturbate in front of my family.
Let's be clear.
But it's not like, you know.
Do you see how fast it goes?
There's an example, right?
Right. I'll make little jokes, and it's not meant to shock or be disrespectful. It's just that I grew up with a very open and, I was allowed to express myself. So Annalise has had to deal with this in all aspects. So the thing that I've learned is that when she actually says nope, that means like I'm getting to a point that either she doesn't think I should be divulging the information. So as you hear on the podcast, I'm like, all right, whatever. We'll do something else. But we've never had where we've gotten off. No, that's not true. One time where we've gotten off the podcast and Annalise was like, whoa, that was too much. The only time was when I made some references to a friend of Annalise that was personal. It wasn't negative, but it was personal, and we didn't ask her beforehand. And Annalise said, I think we might want to cut that part out because she may or may not. And it wasn't like we were going to text her and ask her, and it was just like, okay, fine. That was one of the only times we've ever edited the show. And it was simply, it wasn't anything bad.
It wasn't anything bad. It was just, I don't like to talk about, when you have people on, they agree to be on and they agree to be recorded. But if you're talking about a friend and you're mentioning like a story or something, like for me anyway, I kind of think that maybe, you can talk about it up to a point, but if you say something that maybe you're not totally sure they would mind having that, out on the universe, out in the Twitterverse or whatever, then maybe we shouldn't say that. And so we talked about it after, and Neil, and it's really the only time we've ever edited. As you know, we don't really edit the show. We just let it flow.
We don't edit at all. In fact, half the time I get texts or tweets from a friend of mine saying, something's wrong with your sound. I'm like, I better go check that out.
In fact, Dan's done that for us.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So
there was one time where he edited out about, I don't know, maybe 3 minutes, and you can't really tell. He did a very good job, and you can't really tell that it's there. But
we even said there's this,
and we commented on it in the next episode where, again, I don't even think I told her about it.
No.
Maybe I did. I don't remember. But I just didn't feel comfortable having that in there.
And what's funny was her trip to Vegas and seeing Guns N' Roses. So it wasn't even like it was something
it was
like
just it was just like we had continued on with the conversation. I was like, oh, I don't know if that's cool. Like, I'm not sure we should put that out there.
But the nope, it comes up in our everyday lives. Even like we'll just be out to dinner and I'll start talking about something and she'll just be like, nope. And
I'll just like, okay. I'll like be across the table and like start to shake my head. I'm like, nope.
Which is honestly a great method that you guys have developed there, because truly that's a great way of handling it, right? Because I'm looking at my wife now and thinking to myself, if I started to get into some of the things that Neil did, I'd be on the couch half the time.
Right.
That's right.
But the other thing is, I mean, for good or bad, I am me. I am that way.
Right. If the four of us were out to dinner, and he would be talking the same exact way, and he would reference masturbation, and I'd be like,
wait, hold on.
And I'd be like, whoa.
Wait a minute.
Nope.
I'd be very respectful. But if we were enjoying,
don't be scared. We're okay.
Right, each other's company, and the conversation, I wouldn't bring it up. But if the conversation came up,
happened to go to another thing.
If the dinner conversation just went that direction,
Right.
I do not like these people.
We are never going out to dinner with them.
Yeah. There's something wrong with that guy. And
so
in all
scratch
fairness,
Napa off the hit list on vacation spots.
Well, I think a lot of that goes to being comfortable with somebody, the comfort zone that you have with whomever you're talking to.
Right.
And some people, are okay with it, and other people are like, "What the hell did they just say?" Or then you just go into another topic.
And I don't force myself on people. I mean, I'm very comfortable.
Wow. Okay.
Goodness.
Nope.
I mean, nope. If I'm out with people and I'm totally comfortable.
Do you see how easy this happens? I'm just looking at going, nope.
I digress. Never mind. I failed again.
All right. Well, I'll switch subjects for you, Neil, because you're digging a hole here, buddy. It's having.
These people, I swear.
Yeah.
I want to talk about one subject that I think you guys are extremely well versed in, and I know you've talked about it on your show several times, but for those who haven't heard many of your episodes yet, and hopefully, folks, you have already searched out Dark Angels and Pretty Freaks and hit that subscribe button, and that is the podcast community, especially as you talked about, Neil, the independent podcast community. You guys have really taken to it and very interactive on the social media. You guys have had guests from other podcasts on your shows and have also, as you are now, being a guest on other shows. Tell me about sort of the beginning of this. You mentioned, Neil, you weren't really sure that it existed, and then once you started to see how you guys were being received, what was this process like, and how's it been like since then?
It's interesting. I had a Twitter account. And when I found out about the independent podcast community, just in the, like I said earlier, the research I was doing to start our podcast, I saw, people talking on Twitter about, let's say, podcast hosting or different thing, the right soundboard, the right mics, and went onto Twitter and searched out some of these independent podcasts. And then from that, checked their Twitter feed and realized that it just went on and on and on. And one of the first people I came across was actually a different Dan, but from Musings of a Geek. And he had what was known as a podcast network. And I thought, wow.
That's really
Dude
cool.
has his own network. How does that happen? So, I saw who was on his network, and it was Green Up and Nichols' podcast. I'm drawing a blank. What's Nichols' podcast?
Stop that. Graphic Novice.
Graphic Novice. Really, I totally drew a blank. And started interacting with them and just simply asking like, hey, what's going on? And what do you guys do? And listening to their podcast. And I'm like, oh my God, these are just regular guys that, work 9 to 5 or something like that. And have a podcast and they talk with their friend. I'm like, this is so cool. This is so much fun. And it reminded me a little bit of the music scene, but a little more positive. People seem to be there wasn't as much competition that I could see. In local music, there's always like, you want the best spot or you want to make the most money. And it didn't have that feeling because nobody was making money. So I was like, oh, this is great. And actually contacted Dan from Musings of a Geek. And I'm like, hey, we just started this podcast. And he was extremely kind. He's like, yeah, I'll put you on the network and this and that. And I'm like, we made it. We still had like 3 podcasts, but I'm like, oh my God, we're on this network. And then realized that network really meant what networking means, was a group of podcasts that are going to help each other out. And I thought that was so cool and Elise at this time started, or you had a Twitter account, but started
I had
kind
a
of the
Twitter
same
account, but
way.
I never used it.
Yeah. And because we weren't, and we knew we didn't want to be a podcast really about anything, we looked at all these podcasts as like, wow, it'd be so cool to talk to them because they have a real podcast and we have just a conversation, that we just wanted to help. We wanted to help them any way we could. We wanted to listen and talk to our friends about them and hope that they might want to listen to us and tell somebody. And that's how it started, was just...
I think it was very natural. I felt very comfortable and very natural about like reaching out and talking to other podcasts and other podcast hosts. Yes, please. Mm-hmm. That like, it just seemed, I don't know why, but it just seemed a very obvious thing to do. Like, it just seemed very like, hey, we're going to reach out and talk to you. Hey, I listened to your show. I think it's great. And like, why wouldn't you do that? Like, I don't understand why you wouldn't. So I think that, if I read a book, I would love to tell the author that I loved it. I don't think that we have that kind of community in the in the book world, but like, that would be really cool. Like, what if you could, send a message to like this book that you just read, and like the author be like, wow, that's really great. Thanks for, reaching out and saying that you read it and loved it. And I think that I feel like that in the podcast community. Like, if someone tweets at me or sends me a message saying they listened to the podcast and they really enjoyed it and keep going, great work or whatever, like, it means so much.
It's fun.
So it just seems like, because again, we kind of do this for ourselves and we have these like silly conversations. And so when someone else listens to it and like says something about it, like, it means so much. So I absolutely like do that for them. And so, like I said, it just seemed natural. Like, it was an absolute natural thing to do.
We really have no, like competition or ego when it comes to the podcast. So it can be another couples podcast, it could be couples things podcast, it could be whatever. Nice. And we're just so excited to be part of it and let them know like, oh my God, we listen to it and we enjoy it. And if they don't, I mean, there's so many podcasts out there. Not everybody has the time to listen to us every week. And that's totally cool. Because if you ever want to come back, we're there. If you don't, that's fine. But it's just, we know what it's like to be told it's fun. And because no one can do our podcast, no one can tell our story. There can be another couples podcast, but it's not going to be on Elise and I. It's not going to be our lives. So, you know, it lends itself to just wanting to be open and help this community have a good time and be happy and feel good about what they're doing. So we love doing it. We love being supportive.
We should do like a positive podcast.
We should just
like,
hug. All of
everybody hug it out.
Yeah. Let me ask you guys, in terms of how everybody has received the message, I want to go back to the message, maybe backpedal just a little bit. I have been amazed at how much you guys have been willing to share. You guys have been, Neil, you talked about how open you are, and that does come through on the podcast. Have you guys ever hesitated, or is there much calculation in what you guys share or don't share, or is it kind of that open book concept and, you know, like us or don't type story?
I think it's a little bit different for me than it is for Neil. Like Neil is very, very open, and even though he doesn't like talk about his job that much, he probably could talk more about it. But and I also feel like, for me anyway, like there's some hesitation not only about, you know, where I work, because I'm there, you know, like, well, I don't know, 12 hours a day. So there's like 12 hours a day I can't talk very much about. Right. And so it's been a little bit different for me than it has been for Neil, because again, like conversations, things I see, things I do, I can't talk about them. And I think that if you go back and listen to like a few of the early episodes, you can see that I struggle with it. And so I'm like, oh, today I saw some, and it trails off. Stopped, and, like, and there's actually like one point in an episode where Neil's across the table from me and he's shaking his head like, you can't talk about that. I don't know where you're going with this, but I'm pretty sure you cannot say what you're about to say.
Yeah.
So, and I'm like, oh, okay, right. Good point. But for me as well, I think on the personal level, like I talk about my family a little bit, but I don't talk about them too much just because, you know, I feel sometimes if it's part my story, I can tell it. But if it's like their story, I can't necessarily tell it. Like I don't necessarily, unless I feel like maybe I should like be cool with them because they listen. So I don't want to tell like a story about them or like, and then I've actually, my sister has she's actually texted me before. She's like, I would like to clarify that story. And I'm like, crap. So I am a little more careful. But again, I think, I feel like for me, I kind of
doggy collar.
You're right. Doggy collar. Hi,
Yeah.
Hi, puppy face.
He's right on the lap now. So
I love it.
Hi.
Yeah.
But so for me, I'm a little more careful, but I don't know that I need to be on the personal level. It just that's just the way I am in general. And I'm a little more guarded and Neil's a little more open. And that's the way we are as people. So therefore, that's the way it comes across, I think.
Yeah. For me, I mean, I don't know. This answer might be way beyond what you want, but you know, I don't know. The world has become so small, and we spend, it seems to me, and I might be wrong, that people spend a lot less time being who they truly are and spend a lot of time being some kind of image or what they think people want to see. Or, I mean, I know this is probably getting deeper than you wanted to, but it's like, you know, you got to wear the right clothes or be the right weight or do this and that. And very rarely do we get a glimpse into who people really are. It's really an image. And so I took this when I realized that, well, from the beginning, because it was going to be for family, but when people started listening, is that, no, if people are going to dislike me, they're going to dislike exactly who that I am. And if they're going to like listening, they're really going to know who I am. And for the most part, obviously, you know, there's things we try to keep our podcast positive. So I'm not going to talk about like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I had to pay this much money to the darn insurance company. But, for me, this is an opportunity for people to open up and to be like, wow, that guy will talk about anything. That's kind of cool. And I like that. I think it brings a little humanity to it and a little honesty. I mean, I've got no problem saying stuff on the podcast that I, am afraid of or am sad about or didn't succeed at. And that's just part of it. And if it helps somebody out there, or if nothing else, somebody's like, oh, that's kind of cool. It's better than, trying to be like suck in my gut and walk around in really cool jeans and have my hair all spiked up and be like, hey, I'm Neil. How's it going? How you doing? Because that's not me. I'm the guy in the Batman sweat sitting on the couch playing freaking video games. So why be anything else on the podcast? So that's why I end up being so open and why I want to continue to do that as much as I can.
Neil, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Are you a little more comfortable in front of the mic talking about pretty much anything versus talking to somebody in person?
No, I actually am, and Elise can correct me if I'm wrong.
He is absolutely this open, and more so in real life.
I love that
So,
the interaction. I go out.
If you want to sit down with Neil and have a heart to heart, absolutely, he will do that with you. It's not a problem.
I'm one of those guys. I'm not super competitive. I'm more of the hugger type. I like to talk about feelings.
Right.
I want to know what's really going on. I can be really annoying with that. Sometimes guys are like, "Hey, let's go play football," and I'm like, "How does the football feel about it?" And so my friends and people that know me, know that, and which is kind of cool because then I'm also the guy that people call when they just want an honest answer, and it could be anything from a problem to something good. Sometimes people just want to share something happy and not get some cynical answer. But no, I in person, I probably am even a little more open because I can look at you and gauge your reaction. That's not me. Gauge your Annalise just stared at me like I did something wrong. I can gauge your reaction, and I can see that if you're comfortable and you want this kind of open conversation to continue, it will. And if not, that's fine. I'm totally fine with just talking about the weather or well, not the weather, but
I wasn't going to ask for it, Neil. I wasn't going to.
Or whatever. But yeah, I'm.
So the answer is he is even more open.
More annoying in person than I am on the podcast.
You guys had mentioned it earlier, and I was curious. As you guys know, a lot of my audience is other podcasters, right? And I'm willing to bet, especially some of the newer ones out there, hopefully are going to your website, which link in the show notes, guys, and they are seeing that reference that you made to the podcast networks. You started with Musings of a Geek, but now there are a lot of podcast networks you're a part of. So break it down for me. Pros and cons. What do you guys suggest, recommend? What's the experience been like for anyone who might be considering it?
Do you?
I don't know. Do you want me to do it? Or do you...
For me, I would say, I think, and again, this goes back to the philosophy of being open. Anytime you can connect with other podcasters, other people that are doing something you're passionate about, and share that with them and share their passion, if you're not of the philosophy that you want to crush everybody and be number one, then podcast networks are great because you get to interact with people, and you're promoting other people, and hopefully they'll promote you. And it's a great way, I think, to just meet new podcasters. I mean, it throws you into, here's a bunch of them. Now, it doesn't work so great if your philosophy is, I want to be the number one pop culture indie podcast, and I don't want to share my time or whatever with other people. Then it might not be the best thing. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think networks necessarily will get you more listeners or more this and that. It just might put you, it'll throw you into kind of a friend situation where a community where you're going to interact with other people. But I don't really think like one way is better than the other. It's just, I mean, there are hugely successful podcasters and podcasts that are not part of networks that do as much support as other podcasts who are in networks. And we are not people that support just the podcast networks that we're part of. We'll support podcast networks we're not part of, and podcasts that aren't in the podcast networks we are. But we just always thought it was kind of fun to, be part of these networks. And then it became a little bit of a joke because we were part of so
Because we were
many
everywhere, yeah.
that it was one of those things that we'd get contacted by podcasts and we'd be like, hey, can we throw your stuff up on our network too? And be like,
yes.
yeah, sure, totally.
Absolutely.
But for us, it's a fun way to
way to interact and be part of the community and the world. And I think that it's really cool to not only help each other out, but and not every podcast is for everybody, and that's totally cool. Like, you don't have to listen to our podcast. That's totally fine.
I don't listen to our podcast.
I know you don't.
Yeah.
Neil doesn't listen to our podcast because he hates to hear himself. But I think that and I've said this before, on somewhere else, I can't remember. But I feel like as a good podcaster, you listen to other podcasts and you live and you learn and you absorb, and it's just kind of what you do. Like, you're in there and it's part of the community, and you don't have to be a part of the community. That's totally fine. That's your choice. But for us, we love it. We want to be friends with everybody and be a part of the community.
Everybody.
We love everybody. But, I think that why wouldn't you help each other out? I mean, I don't know. I guess we just don't have that competition spirit so hard in us. But wow.
Wow, so hard. See, I'm not guys.
Oh boy.
Sorry,
Not the only one.
Neil, you shot the look, didn't you?
So
I got the biggest smile on my face. I was like,
there was a very awkward pause.
yeah,
I'm so
that was
sorry.
not me.
Anyway, so we just enjoy being a part of the community. I'm just going to stop talking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, on the community, you mentioned it earlier, Elise, I think, and you guys have gone community engagement to the next level. You guys are going to be attending Rose City Comic Con, you mentioned in September, but there's more. You guys, I believe you guys kickstarted this concept, right? The Jamaica Cast?
Yeah.
Yep.
Tell folks about these two community ideas you guys got going on.
You're not only going to pimp your podcast for you. We invited you on vacation.
We're going to make you hang out with us. Yeah. So Annalise's brother, Michael, who has a podcast, he had two, but now he's got Who the What Now podcast, and he's also a comic book creator, author. He doesn't do the artwork. He does.
Right, he's an author of the comic book. Curse of the Vessel.
We're gonna pimp.
See, I just pimped it for him. Your community. There you
go. So he goes to Rose City Comic Con up in Portland. Annalise lived there before. Michael had lived there before. He goes there to be to pretty much pimp his comic book.
Right.
And he went last year, and we couldn't go, but we decided that we wanted to go this year to support him. And then we kind of thought, oh, it'd be kind of cool. Well, Ryan from Green Up is there. He lives in Portland, so we thought, oh, it'd be. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, he lives in Eugene.
I'm sorry, he lives in Eugene, near Portland.
Stalker said what?
Yeah. So we thought, well, it'd be kind of cool if maybe we could get together. And so we just put it out there. And, Rose City Comic Con kind of took on a life of its own. And now we have people coming from, well, we don't, but people are coming from Canada.
People are coming from Canada.
Michigan.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Different, and we have fathers and sons coming. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of fun. And then we talk about our vacations a lot, and we're fortunate enough that we can go to Jamaica every year. And that's kind of our little, our
that's
downtime.
Our thing, yeah.
And so we've talked about it, and people had, on Twitter and email be like, oh my God, this place is so amazing. Where do we go? I've made a couple videos, walkthrough videos. I made a walkthrough. Well, I should say we made a walkthrough video of one of the resorts we went to. And then since we got married there, we were posting pictures and made a video of just still shots. And people were like, oh, this is beautiful. And we're like, yeah, you should come with us sometime. And they're like, well, when are you going? And
we're like,
we figured
actually
2015 would be a little soon. And so we thought give people a chance to save money and see if they really want to go. So we just started Jamaica Cast 2016, and that has now taken off. And I think where we go is a couples resort, adult only, no kids, not a swingers thing. Don't want to make it sound that.
Don't make it weirder than it is.
Yeah, and I think we're up to 6 or
7 couples. I think, yeah.
8 couples now that are going, and you
don't have to hang out with us all the time. So,
no.
I have to preface that every time this comes up. Like we're all gonna do our own thing.
Yeah,
we'll meet up and have drinks and stuff. Don't make it weird.
Yeah, and so it's kind of neat, and it makes us really happy that people feel connected enough, or I don't know if you want to use the word trust us enough to even look into this, that it's not just like let's go here,
This really weird couple from Napa invited us to Jamaica. How do you feel about going? I can't even believe they have this conversation.
It's an adult only couples resort with no kids, and they have a naked beach. Be like, no, we're not going here.
We are
not going.
I can't even believe you brought it up.
Yeah, that's why whenever somebody emails us or texts us or tweets us about it, I'm like, well, here's the website. Go look at it first.
Yeah, you decide. Yeah. Here's the information. You go do it on your own, because we're not going to try to convince you.
I will explain it terribly wrong.
Well, I was hoping that, what was it, several weeks back, Annalise, I think you were on this, or if not, it really got away, on Twitter, where we were trying to convince the Jamaica Tourism Board to fund other podcasters to join Jamaica Cats.
No, I was a part of that. And then about halfway through, I gave up because you guys just kept going all day. And I was like, I got to work.
I added on the Jamaica Tourism Board in hopes that they would maybe
that is great
fund our visits if we did like voiceovers for their promo videos.
You and Mark from Tangent Bound.
That's
and
awesome.
There's someone else. I'm going to forget. But
yeah, I don't remember either. But
it is interesting because I've tagged, and Annalise has tagged like the resort we're going to in a couple of these, and they've retweeted it.
Yeah, and they've liked it. And we're like,
yeah, it was kind of funny. We're like, oh, you don't know what you're in for.
Right, you don't even know
what you're in for.
Well, I imagine they probably need to know about how much marketing you guys are doing for them. Right. I mean, with that many couples signed up, and probably more to come.
Some sort of kickback, that's for sure.
50% off deal or something.
But it's all included already.
Right, yeah.
That's not helping anybody out.
But it has, I mean, I don't know. It does feel really good, and it's a lot of fun to see that these people not only want to hang out with us,
they want to hang out with each other.
Yeah, it's
How
just
awesome
so
is that?
Cool. I mean, it's
so
just
awesome.
Yeah, it's just so cool.
Let's all hang out. Why is that bad?
And I think there's enough respect and enough caring that it's, you get this many people together. There's going to be some personality types that maybe don't totally get along, but you get that feeling that those people are just going to be like, all right, not my cup of tea. I'm going to go hang out with this person instead. Not in your face, like you got to change your opinion. And what's interesting in getting to know these people is that you have, different political views, different socioeconomic backgrounds, different philosophies,
but we all still want to hang out with each other. But
everybody
which is the cool part about it.
Stuff aside, and is just like, oh, we get to just hang out and have a good time. Yeah, we should hug.
I know. Hug it out.
I'm going to put some real soft, happy music behind that whole monologue.
That.
I think, Dan,
are we freaking your wife out right now?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Dan, what I think you should do is you should do like the regular episode, and then you should go back and recut this and just make it either totally wrong or totally metaphysical and the bells in the background and yeah.
Well, apparently Neil is showing that he can get very philosophical and very deep, which actually leads me to my next question. It's a poor segue, but I'm going to take this one. Okay. So, Neil, you've done Gotham Knights.
Mm-hmm.
Annalise, you've guested on several shows. One of my favorite episodes of How Is This Movie, folks, I've recommended Dana with How Is This Movie. Go back and check out his and Annalise's episode. It was a great conversation that you two did.
Awesome. Thank you.
Any thoughts on another show, regular show, that maybe is different subject matter, that is more of topical or focused on one particular area? Any thoughts on anything like that?
It's interesting you asked. We've started. People have been asking us or asking me. I don't know if they've approached you, but asking me that is like, have you and Annalise thought of doing a show about this or about that? And we didn't think about it. Although now, since it's been suggested, we might consider it. It might be kind of fun to have our Dark Angels and Pretty Freaks, and then also have a show. But it would be something like not necessarily like totally pop culture based, but something a little bit out of the norm, whether it was like a dog thing or, retirement fund thing, something kind of out of the wheelhouse you'd expect us to, well, I guess dogs you'd expect us to talk about, but something kind of
We're
like that.
We're very into financial planning.
Yeah, I am, which is always really funny because I was talking, I forget who I was talking to that I met through the podcast, and I was talking about deferred comps and retirement.
The
They're
401k.
they're like,
and
what? And I'm like,
retirement
I am
benefits.
obsessed with that stuff. And they're
Yeah.
like, I wouldn't have thought so from listening to the podcast.
I was going to say, I think this is new information, folks. I don't believe you guys have mentioned your
We're
interest
serious
in
financial
retirement
planners.
planning.
Oh, I am one of those over-insured, over-retirement conscious.
Yes, we are.
It's funny. My parents from a very young age instilled in me, fiscal responsibility and retirement and this and that. So when Annalise and I met and, we started merging finances and talking to stuff, one of the first things I did was like, oh no, you have to open up your deferred account now.
So
She's like, what?
So here's the thing, you guys. So, and I'm sure you guys have had this conversation, but we had this conversation very early in a relationship.
We were dating.
What's your retirement like? What's your retirement situation? And I'm like, so we aren't getting the fries, or I don't. What?
we did have that conversation. In fact, I had to tell my wife to start a 401k.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I was, I had just changed jobs, and I hadn't started up my 401k yet, and I think I had been back at Skywalker for almost a year, and he's like, so let me get this straight. They match funds and you haven't reopened your 401k? And he's like, you better do that tomorrow. And keep in mind, I think we just moved in together or something. I'm like, whoa, dude, whoa.
Well, it's kind of funny. I'll be walking through the house and make some sexual innuendo that's followed by, if we pay an extra $50 a month to the car payment, it'll be done in, 5.3 months early. And she's like, what? Okay,
I don't understand your segue right now, but okay.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go take a shower and play with myself. And she's like, yeah, whatever.
Neil, it's scary to me that the payoff on your car and, sexual innuendos occupy the same portion of your brain. I don't know how I feel about that.
What worries on Elise is that whole bicycle rear tire.
That disturbed us all, Neil.
Yes.
So that's actually, to go back, that was, so when we were talking about the one thing that we would talk about later after the podcast or everything, we didn't talk about that. But when he said that on the podcast, I was like, oh God, we're going to I was like, that's the one, that's going to be the one that goes on forever. And it keeps going on. And I'm like, please stop.
Well, that one you guys totally brought on yourselves because you guys mentioned it in passing and then reiterated it the next week.
It's totally my fault. Totally my fault.
I was going to say, when you guys, I think that was on Elise. It went under the radar, and then all of a sudden it's like, wow, look.
I was just so amazed it went under the radar.
Well, she threw the ball back up, Neil, but you hit the home run with it.
I will concede.
Right. Anyway, but yeah, so we, I don't know. I mean, I think that, I know that I think Neil's, considered doing other podcasts, and I've been asked to do other podcasts, but I just don't have the free time. And luckily for me, Neil takes the lion's share of the work behind this podcast and the editing and then putting it up and making sure our networks get
by editing she means putting it off on our friends like you, Dan, to call me or text me and tell me something's wrong with your damn podcast.
Well, you do, but you still do way more than I do. So just because how far I have to commute.
But it's fun. But that's part of the hobby. That's that music layover thing of I get to do this and use this software, which I don't use very well anymore.
Stop. But so anyway, it just I haven't been able to commit to doing another show just because I just. But
would you do another one with me?
I would do another one with you because, again, most of the work would fall to you.
Fair enough.
And since we're married, I'm okay with that. But that's why I've said no to doing other shows because then all the work would do
where we just marry. We just
marry.
No, we just marry. We interview couples.
Interesting.
Yeah, podcasters and their wives or husbands.
Sheila.
That could be very interesting.
You're going to co-opt this episode as your first episode, aren't you?
That could be very interesting.
Episode 0, you heard it here.
I can hear Neil now. So, have you ever dreamed of a bike?
Right. Well, here's my thing. I was just about to say the problem that we haven't learned. 0. Go bark somewhere else. The problem that sorry about that. The problem that we have, as you're probably now realizing, as you realize when we did our podcast, is we kind of steamroll through podcasts. We kind of are so frazzled and ADD that we're just kind of like, oh, so I'd be like, oh, we're going to interview other podcasters. No way, we're going to interview each other, and you guys get to sit there and listen. So I don't know. I could probably ruin that too.
Well,
Dan's pretty good at ringing us back in, though.
Yeah.
I think if you guys put anything new out, I think there's a lot of people who would love to check it out. Or even if you're just, regularly appearing on something else. But if you two together do something else, I think that a lot of people will definitely take notice of that for sure. Because I think you guys have done... You guys have been the source of advice that I have given to other podcasters, believe it or not. I mentioned earlier talking about how, what you guys decided to share or not share. And one of the things, and I've told you guys this before, that has kept you guys on this upward, trajectory as far as, listeners and followers and people who, are fans, is that they have connected with you as people. And I think what you guys are doing with, Rose City or Jamaica, people are responding to that, not necessarily because they ever thought that they would, next year or in September go to these destinations, but because they do feel that relationship with you guys, and you've created it through people's earbuds week after week after week. And that is something that not every show can do. And you talked earlier, Neil, about NPR and things like that. And I listen to a lot of those big shows as well. And I get tied into the stories. Some of those stories are amazing. Mm-hmm. But with you guys, people get tied into the people, to you two as individuals. They want to hear about the Target shopping trip the next week, or any cheese knife incidents, or, if there's been another earthquake this week, or whatever the case may be. Folks want to hear those things. And I think that for folks who have a similar format, if you will, conversational with what's been going on in the week, I think that's up to them. So you guys mentioned, Paul and David Meyer, David Meyer of Podcast Without Borders. They're just getting started on their new show, Diamond Mines, and I think that's going to be their challenge, right? If they're going to be successful, it's going to be because people are going to end up caring about that father-son relationship. And if they can make them care about that, then they're going to have great success. And that's, I think, what you guys have done.
That's amazing. Very nice compliment. And the greatest compliment that we get, and fortunately, we get it often enough, is that people say, I feel like I'm just hanging out with friends and they're just talking to me about what's going on with them. And that's extremely humbling. I mean, I know we try every week to say, thanks for listening, and it's humbling how many people listen and all that, but we actually mean it. I mean, we really feel it. There's something really cool.
We talk about it all the time.
When somebody goes out of their way to say, like, wow, I just feel like I'm hanging out with two of my friends, that really makes our hearts swell. I mean, really. I mean, that's that time when you watch a Christmas movie, and at the end everybody's hugging, and that's how we feel. We're like, wow, that's really cool. I mean, we're just doing what we do. If people weren't here, we'd still be having those conversations. There just wouldn't be mics here. And for people to take their time to say that is extremely humbling. Now, I'm glad you mentioned Diamond Mines, because those two guys, Paul and David, are such cool people. And I think they have it about their podcast. And it's so cool I want to say meet, but we've talked with them on our podcast and talked to them a little bit just on Skype off of podcasting, and obviously through Twitter. But when what I'd like to think is the way that I feel when I listen to their podcast or interact with them on Twitter is, if people feel 1/10 of that when they hear our podcast, I'm extremely flattered, because it's just, those are, when you come across people like that, which kind of goes back to the being open and allowing people into your life. When you come across people like that and get to meet people like that, even if it's not in person, and get to call them your friends, even if they're not maybe somebody you're going to call when you get a flat tire, but somebody that, people that you just seem like really good, honest people. There's something about it that just opens up your world, and you're like, wow, these guys are awesome. They're cool. and I get to hear about their lives and their relationships and their ups and downs, and they interact with me, and they listen to our podcast, and they get to interact with our ups and downs. That's what I think the indie podcast movement and podcasters that want to open up bring to each other. And I think they've got it. I wish our podcast was like theirs, because they're freaking amazing.
They're really awesome.
Yeah.
I want to tell you a very short story, Dan.
Sure.
So I think there's two really huge compliments that really made me kind of humble about this whole thing. I'm humbled by it all the time, but there's Nickel from Graphic Novice who said on his podcast once that he felt like he could show up on our doorstep with a box of wine. He did say box.
Box of wine.
He did say box of
Which
wine.
is totally cool.
Which is, we drink that. That's fine. But he said he felt like he could show up on our doorstep with a box of wine and he'd be invited in. And I was like, absolutely. That's,
Absolutely.
like he would be like, hey guys, I'm here. And I'd be like, yeah, dude, come on in. Let's hang out. But so that meant a lot to me. And it just, so it felt like he gets it. Like he's, we're friends. Like he wants to hang out with us. And that's exactly how we want it to feel when you listen to it. And so I hope that's what everybody's getting from it. And then my other story is I got a private message from a girl that I hung out with a few years ago at a comic book convention, San Diego Comic-Con. And I think it's been like, I'm not even sure. It's been like maybe 6 years now, maybe. And I haven't talked to her in person since then. I mean, we're Facebook friends, Instagram buddies and things like that. But I haven't talked to her face to face in probably 6 years. And she sent me a private message saying that she was working for this architecture firm and she had to pull an all-nighter and she was in this, building by herself and she had to do this work. And she noticed that I had this podcast, I put on my Facebook and things like that. And she said that she spent the entire night awake and marathoning us from her iPod. And she said that it just got her through it. And she just felt like she wasn't alone, that she was hanging out with us. And she said that she laughed and she yelled at the radio. And she was just like, oh, it was so awesome I feel like I caught up with you. And, she's like, I wanted to say thank you. And I wanted to make contact and say that I listened and it was really cool. And I felt like, even though I was here by myself, I didn't feel alone and you guys were hanging out and it was really awesome. And that was probably like the moment I was like, wow, this is really cool. And I don't even know how to respond to that. And I sent her really long response, obviously saying thank you for everything and how awesome that is. But so that within itself was like just super humbling. So.
That's good stuff. That's for sure. I have a friend of mine in Virginia who says that she listens to my show every week and feels like, because we moved up to Pennsylvania a couple of years ago from Virginia, where we're originally from. And she says listening to the show every week makes it seem as if I'm not so far away.
Isn't that cool?
Yes. And that was like, that is awesome, and, I was like, well, I wish maybe, I should publish an episode on something else, but hopefully you're getting into
Sheila
podcasts.
Just give like a life update.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, I mean, when the episode I listened to, I guess is when you were interviewing Dan on your show. I just felt like you were real people, like someone that you could actually meet on the street, not somebody that was made up, they're making things up as they go along. And I think that's why me personally, I sort of related to some of the things you guys talked about. It's like, oh, really? I'm not the only one that's dealt with that type of thing, right? And sometimes I guess, at least for myself, we've got kids, and I'm thinking, I can't be the only parent dealing with this kind of crap. There's got to be somebody else out there. And so when I hear similar things that either I've gone through or, we've gone through as a family, it sort of makes me feel a little bit better that I wasn't the only one experiencing something. So, in all honesty, Dan's been really pushing me to listen to more podcasts. And I'm like, is there anything that I'm really going to like? Because I'm very picky about what I want to listen to. And what if I get bored with it? Could I just easily just switch to something else?
I have the same fear about myself.
All right, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
She'll just get bored with me. So, yeah.
Nice.
You don't have to listen to Dan's podcast. But what
I've listened to a couple.
Thanks, Annalise.
I listened to a couple, and he's like, did you listen to my podcast today? And I'm like, no. I listened to a few minutes, so now he doesn't even ask anymore.
Right.
Leave it alone.
That's the cool thing about podcasts, and especially the indie podcast communities. There's so much out there.
There's something for everybody.
If you start listening and it doesn't grab you, there'll be something else in that whatever the topic is that you want. Or maybe you'll come across a topic that you're like, I never thought I'd be into a Mustang engine rebuilding podcast. But these two women talking about it. But it's out
there. And you could if you wanted to.
These two women talking about it, when they talk about their lives, I can relate. So now I'm listening, I'm listening to a 1969 engine rebuild. I mean, that's the neat thing is that especially in the indie community is that these people are them. They're real. So yeah, you listen to a podcast, you might get 5 minutes and be like, nah.
That's not for me.
There's going to be 100 billion more that you can check out.
Yeah, you'll find one.
And I just want to say,
2 or 3.
again, that I think it is so freaking awesome that you are on this podcast. And I want to extend this now that anytime the
Don't
two
scare
of you...
her. Don't scare her.
Anytime the two of you would like to be on our podcast, if you guys are feeling comfortable with that, you just let us know, and it's a done deal. Because this is so...
As long as alcohol is involved, I'm good.
Oh,
Right.
it's
Nice.
yeah. You'll unfortunately you'll probably get tipsy through my microphone. So
Right.
yeah,
Well, I'm going to
I'm
do
2 years in on this one.
I'm going to do the post-mortem on her at the end of this and see if she's been able to warm up a little bit to this idea. So,
No.
well, there you go.
No, not in that sense that I'm not. It's just, I guess I've gotten a little more comfortable as time's going on. I forget the mic's even in front of me now.
nice.
Yay.
Yeah.
Speaking of drinking, guys, I have to apologize because I recently had the guys from Moving the Needle on, including Heno.
Nice.
And was talking to them, and apparently, according to them, I actually started this, and I didn't know that I did. I just remember saying it, but now there's like almost 8 or 10 different shows that whenever you guys come up, it's constantly followed by drink now. And so I just want to apologize for that.
Yeah. It's
That's okay.
well, what I really like about that, the rattle.
There you go.
What I really like about that is that Paul from Diamond Mines. Now, when he says your name, he
Right.
drinks. Which I thought the first.
I heard that. I heard him start that.
Which is great. The first time I heard it, I was like, son of a-
Dan is a drinking game.
yeah.
Wow.
The first time I heard it, I was like, son of a bitch, it's not Dan, it's us. And then I thought, oh, that's classic.
I'm
That's
like,
good.
That's awesome.
I
So
started this thing. I'm thinking, like,
It's coming back around to you.
it was all in that one week where I must have listened to 4 different shows, and you guys came up on all of them. And so the next one I was on where you guys came up, I decided to turn it into a drinking game.
It's, that's another one of those things that for us, it's so much fun. It's so neat to listen to your friend's podcast and refer to you, especially in a goofy way, like drink, whether you drink or not, and that doesn't matter. But if you got coffee,
I told
or if
Heno
you got
to
whatever.
grab a coffee. So.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just so neat that, and the cool thing is that people accept it, and it's not like, oh, we're not going to mention them because that's going to give them more publicity and whatever. It's kind of like people are like, oh, that's cool, yeah, look at them drink.
Oh, that's so funny. I didn't even know about this.
Yes.
Yeah, it's gotten everywhere at this point.
Right.
I'm going
Honey,
to have
let-
to do this
honey,
when we
let-
see the family.
He's like, honey, I have to tell you this thing.
Yeah.
I am now officially a drinking game.
I'm going to have to
what I
mention it
think
to my mother-in-law now.
what I think we should do is if you guys decide to be on our podcast, that's cool. If not, no problem. But if you are, it's going to be a freaking constant drinking game because between mentioning Dan and mentioning us, it's going to be
We're
like,
gonna have to no names.
yeah,
or
it's going to be like, hey, Dan was on Dark Angels and Pretty Freaks. Drink. That's a lot of drinking.
something. Right. We're
So-
gonna have to do fake names or something. You
Yeah,
can
it's-
call me Carol or something
gonna
weird.
be-
We'll have to put a disclaimer on the episode. If you're listening and are familiar with the independent podcast community, please stop driving.
Right.
That's too funny.
Well, folks, before
I love that.
before we wrap this up, I want to make sure that you guys do all the plugging because I didn't do it, Dark Angel style up front like Neil likes to do. I want to make sure I do not forget about it. So tell them where they can find the show on the Twitters, on the 12.5 networks you guys are a part of.
Neil does all the plugging. So.
Whoa. Oh my God. Seriously? Jesus, that was set up. You were planning
Dan
that.
started it.
You were
Dan
planning
started
that.
it.
No, go ahead. you do
Drink.
it.
You know, right? Exactly.
Nice.
See?
Plug, Neil, plug.
She's
Okay,
in.
so you can find us at darkangelsandprettyfreaks.com, and we do have a free app. And I always like to make because this is our kind of our hobby that we get to do together. We got this goofy free app, and it's always so funny to me because I'm like, the free app really gives you nothing special except you can look at a picture of our logo while you're actually listening to the podcast.
Well,
of
we
which
might put
somebody
some more
then
stuff on
said
there, but yeah.
you can do that on both Stitcher and iTunes also. And I'm like, oh, that's lovely. So, Dark Angels and Pretty Freaks, we are everywhere. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Pinterest, Tumblr, and it's all DAPF Pod. You can call us at 774-DAPF713. I'm on Twitter at AngelsFreak7. And this is funny because people will always ask me, like, are there that many Angels Freak? And it's because our dog was 7. So it's not because I couldn't come up with something original. The 7 actually means something, you sons of bitches. Wow. And you are?
Wire Tech Girl.
And we are a part of a few networks, and to name a few is Wicked Radio Network, Danger Entertainment, Musings of a Geek, Poddam, Podgods Network, and Tangent Bound Network. And we're hoping to add maybe 75 more by next
Right. We're hoping this whole outro thing takes an hour.
But if you go to Dark Angels and Pretty Freaks, our website is fairly, what's the word I'm looking for? Annoying. So you can see everywhere we're at and goofy pictures of us. And yeah, that's it.
Woo.
And folks, I will have most of those links in the show notes.
Yes, you don't have to. It's fine. Really,
Definitely for the website and, on the Twitters. Those are the ones I like to link up as well, because through those, you can pretty much find everything else. Neil and Annalise, it has been awesome to have you guys on. This was a long time in
been about a year in the making.
Yes, a long time in the making. And I tried to do it upright by, bringing on company and my wife Sheila's podcast debut.
That is awesome.
Epic.
And Dan, may I have just 1 minute to say, I just want to thank you. You have been extremely supportive of our show and of our podcasting and of us as people. I mean, with the concern through earthquakes and weddings and the unfortunate passing of dogs, and whatever else we go through. We mentioned it on our podcast, but you are an amazing person. And we consider you a friend, and we really enjoy the work you do, and we really enjoy that you are so supportive of us as people and as podcasters, and that you brought your wife Sheila on.
We're not going to cry. There's not going to be any crying on this podcast.
It's freaking amazing. So I just wanted.
This is not going to be Barbara Walters.
I just wanted to personally thank you for that.
Get the tissues.
Annalise has tears in her eyes.
I know,
this is
it's
awesome.
Well, you are most welcome.
I would never know that if you didn't tell them.
Tell them.
Well, the feeling's definitely mutual, and I've been a big fan ever since I found you guys. I've blasted through the whole catalog. When I found you guys at episode 15 or 13, something like that, I went back to the beginning and caught up, and have been listening. You guys know Sunday tradition, pretty much Sundays. Dark Angels and Pretty Freaks is pretty much a part of every one of my Sundays, and that's not changing anytime soon. And folks, if you're listening, I encourage you to do the same thing. Check out the links in the show notes. Find this show. If you're not listening to it, you don't know what you're missing. You will enjoy what you hear. And if you don't, as Neil has said, it's okay. There are other great shows out there, and hopefully we'll be telling you about another great one next week. So Neil, Annalise, again, thank you for taking the time. So much appreciated. And that'll do it. Sheila, thank you very much for joining me on the podcast.
Yeah, Sheila, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Awesome.
So amazing to meet you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so
You
much.
guys, the same.
And folks, that'll do it for this week on the Podcast Digest. And until next week, my name's Dan Lizette. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Podcast Digest. You can follow the show on Twitter at Pod Digest. Like the show on Facebook at facebook.com/The Podcast Digest. Email the show feedback at thepodcastdigest@gmail.com. And you can find all the previous episodes and exclusive blog entries at the show's website, thepodcastdigest.info.